Madam President, I've come to speak about the two nominees on the executive calendar that are before us this morning or this afternoon, Norman Bay and that of Cheryl LaFleur. Both are nominated to be commissioners on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the FERC, an increasingly critical independent regulatory commission. And as it has considered these nominations, there's been kind of a weird drama that has played out. The entire community that follows the FERC, and as I understand, the agency itself, have been really very distracted by it. Many are concerned that the wrong person is set to take over as chair of the FERC and that the commission is at risk of losing its reputation for objectivity. So for the benefit of senators who are not on the Energy Committee and for members of the public who have not followed the controversy surrounding these nominees, let me provide a little bit of perspective this afternoon. Both nominees have been serving at the FERC. Ms. LaFleur currently leads the agency as its chair. She has done so with distinction for the better part of a pretty difficult year. This is a year that has brought about the polar vortex and a challenge to the bulk power system reliability. The other individual, Mr. Bay, is an employee, the director of the agency's Office of Enforcement. He was appointed to that post by its somewhat controversial former chair, John Wellinghoff of Nevada. Now, if confirmed, Mr. Bay will become the first FERC employee in the agency's history who could go directly and immediately to the commission itself, despite just 5 years of relevant experience. Furthermore, Mr. Bay will not only be elevated to the post of commissioner, President Obama has announced that Mr. Bay will be designated as chairman after his confirmation. And that means that Ms. LaFleur, the FERC's only female commissioner, will be demoted when Mr. Bay takes over as chair. Now, how soon Ms. LaFleur's demotion will take place is unclear at this moment. At the Energy Committee's business meeting to consider these nominees, there was a lot of talk about a deal that would allow Ms. LaFleur to remain as chair for a period of time. It was suggested that this would give Mr. Bay some much-needed on-the-job training as a rank-and-file commissioner. And so there was a lot of discussion going back and forth. I was certainly part of that discussion. But talk of a deal and confirmation of a deal, giving the assurances that certainly this senator had sought and yet was not given. Talking about a deal and getting a deal are two different things. And so as we discuss where we are with these nominees, I think it's important to recognize that even if Ms. LaFleur stays on for a period of months, whether it's 9 months, as some have suggested that deal is, or a different period of time, what we understand is that Ms. LaFleur will only be allowed to continue in an acting capacity. So stop and think about this. You have President Obama, who has nominated Ms. LaFleur twice for high office, and despite what I think has been her distinguished service as a commissioner and as chair of the FERC, the White House dismisses her as an acting chair. The administration reportedly has limited her authority even to hire staff. Now, some have suggested that this is just a technicality, that this is what happens within the commission. That is not my understanding at all. I would view it as an affront. If you're going to be the chair, you should have the full authorities of the chair. Now, even though I disagree with acting Chair LaFleur on some key policy matters, by all accounts from both Republicans and Democrats, she's doing a good job. She is fair. She seeks balance. She has the temperament that I think we need for this commission. She has the personal qualities of leadership that we look for. She clearly has the experience. She's got 25 years worth, in fact, and I would certainly hope that she will be easily confirmed this afternoon. In fact, I would hope that Chair LaFleur's bipartisan support has not, in fact, hurt her prospects. Chair Landrieu observed during the committee's consideration of these nominees that Ms. LaFleur's renomination was, quote, not a sure thing just a couple of months ago. But you have to ask, well, why not? Why wasn't the renomination of the only woman serving as a FERC commissioner, a Harvard-educated Obama appointee from Massachusetts, why wasn't she a sure thing from the get-go? Was it her bipartisan appeal? I would certainly hope not. Was it her good work as a chair? Again, I hope not. To me, those are reasons that you would choose her to lead the FERC, not someone else. So one hint came from our majority leader here, Senator Reid. He recently told the Wall Street Journal that Ms. LaFleur, quote, has done some stuff to do away with some of Wellinghoff's stuff, close quote. Now, he didn't really define what stuff that was, and without acknowledging that much of Mr. Wellinghoff's stuff was either controversial or incapable of withstanding legal challenge. Now, before we turn to Mr. Bay and his unprecedented promotion from Director of the Commission's Office of Enforcement in the face of Ms. LaFleur's demotion, let's just discuss the agency that the White House proposes that he would lead for just a second. Why does the chairmanship of the FERC matter so much? Well, Madam President, you sit on the Energy Committee. You know, you're watching this. You're looking at the issues of reliability. In the energy world, FERC regulates midstream everything. The chairman is its CEO, and under his or her leadership, FERC regulates interstate natural gas and oil pipelines, LNG import and export facilities, the sale of electricity at wholesale, the transmission of electricity in interstate commerce, basically the nation's bulk power system, practically speaking, its high voltage transmission networks. Also the reliability of the bulk power system, the licensing of hydroelectric facilities, and the safety of dams, and the list goes on and on. One further example is the safeguarding of sensitive information about our critical energy infrastructure, information that was compromised by FERC during the tenure of former Chairman Wellinghoff. And that series of events is now subject to an ongoing inquiry by the Inspector General of the Department of Energy, and it's a breach that Ms. LaFleur has vowed will not happen again. Now, given the significance of this agency, let's consider Mr. Bay. So beyond the demotion of Ms. LaFleur and beyond his lack of relevant experience, what's causing me pause here? To begin, there are questions about the fairness and transparency of the functioning of the FERC Enforcement Office during Mr. Bay's tenure there. And I haven't resolved those questions, but I know that others are looking at them. Senator Barrasso has called attention to some of the questions. He's called for an independent review of the facts in dispute. Second is the question of the circumstances under which Mr. Bay would recuse himself from at least 43 different matters, including some high-profile matters that had been pending in the Enforcement Office on his watch. But unfortunately, Mr. Bay apparently doesn't see a need to recuse himself from these proceedings. And then third are the answers that Mr. Bay provided to questions from those of us on the Energy Committee. At best, many were unclear, and at worst, his responses were simply evasive. Now, finally, I keep coming back to the deal, the waiting period here that was needed to attract enough support on the Democratic side to report Mr. Bay's nomination from the committee. So you have to ask the question, well, what are those terms? Will the acting chair have the opportunity to serve fully and completely as chair? Will it be clear that Mr. Bay is not a shadow chairman or a chairman in waiting during this crucial period? And at a minimum, before we make a choice about who should lead the FERC, the President, I think, owes senators a clear timeline of who will be in charge, what the powers will be given to him or her. Madam President, FERC is just too important a commission. It's too important for appointees to be handled like this. So today, I'm going to be supporting the confirmation of Ms. LaFleur. In fact, I'm pleased to support her, even though I don't always agree with her policy views. But I do regret that I will not give my support to Mr. Bay, and I would urge other senators to withhold their support as well. And with that, I yield the floor.